Okay, this is gonna be my first video in this series called Absence of Logic. Basically, any movie which has a lot of logic missing from its circuit qualifies for this series. The first movie is The Tomorrow War. It's a movie on Prime. It stars Chris Pratt, the Jurassic guy or Star-Lord. Anyhow, this movie is one of the movies in which it's like a King Kong movie, except 90% of the time it doesn't make any logical sense. So even though King Kong was fun, even with the absence of logic in the plot, it was still fun to watch. But it was supposed to be a goofy movie, so we didn't really care. It's a monster fight movie, and it had a mecha Godzilla at the end, so it's supposed to be goofy. That's what I'm getting at. But Tomorrow War kind of definitely seemed to be a serious movie, so it wasn't so fun considering how illogical the movie was. Anyways, the basic plot of the movie, which is the most illogical one, but if there's a thing called suspension of disbelief, which I can get behind, even if how illogical the beginning is. If the plot demands an illogical step for the movie to happen, okay, fine, I'll let it slide. But the problem is, the movie is basically a roller coaster of suspension of disbelief. So it is throughout the movie you have to suspend your disbelief. It's almost as if you had to shut your brain just to watch the movie. You gotta say the visuals are pretty good. The aliens are really sharp, and the designs are pretty cool actually. One of the best alien designs out there. And weirdly enough, the plot behind why the aliens are there actually kind of makes sense. The ironic part is the only time it actually kind of give you anything that made any logical sense, it was at the end of the movie. That's kind of a shame. But anyways, the plot of the movie is basically that they got the alien infestation in the future, about 30 years in the future from the present. The present as in which Chris Pratt is there. Anyways, in the future they got the alien infestation, but they also have the technology to travel back in time. But it's not the movie slash TV show time travel we haven't seen a lot. This is the kind of time travel in which you are not actually allowed to change the future when you change the past. That makes a lot more sense. If you can change the future by time traveling, then you're basically probably living in a simulation of some kind, because it's logically not possible to time travel in a way in which you can literally change your own timeline. Anyways, in this time travel, they're basically time traveling to alternate universe in an alternate timeline. Basically, they travel in 30 years in the past, but in a different universe. So anything they do that in the past doesn't really matter in the future, because they're completely different. So none of the time travel shenanigans, which I'm glad for that. But anyhow, the plot is that they wanna get help from the past because their numbers are dwindling, and they need some help because they're almost down to 500,000 people. And you gotta get, this is 30 years in the future, so we have 7 billion people right now, so they might have 10 billion. So it went from 10 billion to 500,000 people. That's just about 0.005% of the population remaining. It's really bad. So you would think when they're asking for help, they would be asking for resources, medical equipments, weapons, raw materials. Literally anything other than people. But that's what they're asking. They're literally asking for soldiers. They want humans to actually volunteer. Oh my bad, not volunteer. Draft them himself into a fighting force and go into the future for 7 days. And if they survive, they get to come back. I don't know if you think that's idiotic or not, but I think it's idiotic because, you don't need humans, you actually need resources. And later you find that the main reason they want the humans, to be honest, I still don't know if that's the reason they want the humans, but the main goal of the future is to develop a toxin to kill the female of the alien species, because they already have a toxin to kill the males, but they don't have a toxin to kill the females. So they want to develop a toxin by capturing a female. So something they need people from the past. I still don't get it. They're literally drafting people and taking them without any kind of prior training. They're not even qualifying them for a certain role before they teleport. I'm guessing when they're in the future, they're going to be assigned different roles based on their profession or their qualification, but they're not assigned. They're not even told what they're going to be doing in the future. Considering they're risking their life, they should be told, but they're not. Okay. And worse than that, they're not given any kind of prior training. I guess there are two groups. Group R and Group D. I don't know, maybe Group D for disposable, I don't know, but anyways, Group R is for research, so I'm guessing Group D is the muscle, but they're not trained in any way possible, so any way conceivable by I mean, they train for like what, 10-20 minutes at tops, I don't know, 1 hour. Point being, they're supposed to be fighting the aliens and they are not trained, and they are not even given an info on the aliens beforehand. All the information they're going to be getting is when they actually land in the future. That's psychotic. I mean, are they just sending people just to die? Actually, when I was watching the movie, I actually had a doubt whether people were actually drafted to be feed for the aliens, to maintain them somehow, some evil plot. I actually thought that was going to be the twist, but obviously that made too much logical sense, so that wasn't the case. They were just sent to fight them without any training, without any gear, because they don't get any gear. The most weirdest part, because they're supposed to be fighting, so shouldn't they get the gear? Anyways, to be honest, even the draft makes no sense, because in the draft they somehow convinced the people from the past, governments from the past, to actually make a mandatory draft for people to fight the future, a future in which a battle has already lost, cause there are less than 500,000 people. The battle has already lost from the future, but for the past it's basically a win-win right now, cause they already know that their future invasion is going to be coming, so they're prepared. They can be prepared, they can make better weapons, and they can even research to know where the aliens are going to be coming from, so they have no reason whatsoever to actually send people from their own timeline to the future, basically wasting their own talent for the future which is already lost. And on top of that, you gotta think, when the government actually makes a mandatory draft like the one they're doing, which is this,
any attempt to evade the draft or tamper with the device will result in your imprisonment, or your spouse or dependent of legal age taking your place. You have 24 hours to get your personal affairs in order and report for basic training. Do you have any questions?
People are not gonna be happy with the government, to be honest, with anyone in general, because no one likes being forced to do anything. I mean, some governments do make a mandatory draft for all of the citizens, but especially in US they don't do that. Like, people can volunteer or not, they can completely go without ever fighting in a war or even be part of a military. So for them to actually enforce mandatory draft like a North Korean draft, that's psychotic. That would never happen in a realistic human world. And to be honest, I don't think they're getting anything in return, because at first, like I told you, there was a toxin that was being developed by the future to fight off the infestation, to kill the females. But middle of the movie you find out that the government from the past didn't even make a deal for the toxin. You would think the whole reason the government would agree to send their own talent, their own people, and also to destabilize their government would be to get an upper hand for fighting the aliens. But they didn't even make the deal, because later at the middle of the movie we find out that the daughter trusts her father, so she is giving the toxin to him to take it back to the past. I mean, literally anyone else could do the same job as long as they make it back alive. What I'm getting at is that there is no logical reason within the movie for the past government to actually agree with the request of the future. So anyways, basically after giving them the non-existent gear, the non-existent training, and also the non-existent info on the aliens they are fighting.
Okay, but why don't we have pictures or videos? It would help us to know what we're up against.
The consensus was that if the public saw what they'd face when they reached the future, it would become virtually impossible to fill that hunger.
They finally get to the future, our MC and this gang, I guess. But unfortunately for them, there was an error in the coordination, and they all land on a rooftop from 200 feet up or something, and most of them died. So anyways, the MC was asked by the general at the time from the future to safeguard few scientists who were working on the toxin, and the MC is actually on a timer, cause the future general is supposedly trying to bomb the area, even though the scientists and all the scientific knowledge are right now in that specific area. I mean, makes no sense. Why would you bomb the area if the one thing that can save you is right there? I mean, it's not like there are no other places in the world where alien infestation is still active. Just let it be. Like, okay, whatever. So they're gonna bomb it in some minutes, so they have to retrieve the scientists or the scientific equipment over there, like the vials which contain the toxin. anyways, they get there and do the thing, blah blah blah, and everyone's basically like a meat shield. This is the reason why I don't get why the D-Force or the R-Force, No Force, why they were not briefed on what the aliens could do, how to fight them. I mean, they were briefed for like 10 minutes, but they need at least 2 weeks of prior training to fight them. Anyways, they didn't do any of that, so most of them die, and the MC even does dumb shit.
We're working on it. We gotta go. No, we can't leave him.
He tried to save a guy, but in doing so he killed majority of his team, including the guy he was trying to save. So essentially it made a lot of loss and made no profit whatsoever. So in essence, MC is kind of a naive idiot, and it's not like he learned anything from his mistake. He never even mentioned the incident afterwards in the movie. Anyways, then they reach the base. Then the biggest fallacy in the movie. So like I said, they actually have the toxin for killing the males, but they don't have the toxin to kill females, right? But the problem is 90% of the ones who come attack them are males. So what's keeping them from killing them? Like, well, there are just about 10% of females. I mean, even if I'm wrong and there are more females, or if they are a species in which females are dormant and they act like males, but I'm guessing still there are gonna be a lot of males in the group, so they could still kill the males. They should use toxin fog. The reason I'm saying toxin fog instead of something like a tranquilizer with the toxin in it would be because they have an exoskeleton, so if bullets can penetrate it, I don't think any tranquilizer is gonna. So they could probably make some kind of grenade which could launch the toxin as a fog and kill at least all the males. Yeah, fog, toxin fog, that'd be pretty cool. Especially in the future, they should be able to have a technology to create toxin fog, right? Anyhow, even though they have the male toxin, they still don't use it in any way, in any form of warfare. Again, I don't get it, but okay. I mean, they are supposed to be dumb idiots who actually killed themselves even though they were from the future. So I guess it makes sense. They kind of not that smart. Anyways, they make the toxin. Anyways, after some family bonding, blah blah blah, they somehow make the toxin. Okay, when they finish the toxin, they notice that their base was being surrounded by the aliens rushing in to get to the female that was being held there. Then Star-Lord basically suggests to kill the female to stop the aliens from rushing in, but the general doesn't wanna because she only has a single vial of toxin left that can actually kill a female. But I'm like, the female you wanna kill right now is cornered in a room restrained by chains. You can just use bullets to kill it. I mean, she's not invincible, just use the guns to kill her. Anyhow, they don't kill the female, so the aliens keep on infiltrating the base. And again, I gotta say, why would they even try to research these toxins from their timeline, from the future, considering they have lower resources and lower manpower? If I were from the future, like I said, I wouldn't ask for manpower from the past in the future. I would probably use the resources like research scientists and so on, considering they can travel from the future to the past. If I were them, I would take a corpse or any kind of DNA sample, tissue sample, blood sample from the aliens from the future to the past to research on it to make more toxins. And considering we are more people than them and we are more determined to find the cure, considering we already know what the result would be if we don't find it, we would be more energetic to find it, so we would find it most likely a lot faster than them. But they don't do that. Like, I don't get it, but okay, one of the other absence of logic movements. But anyways, the general dies. He goes back to the past, and he's holding the vial of toxin which can kill both female and male at this point. And the people in the past are basically just basically daydreaming. I don't know, because they literally have the toxin to fight the creatures, and they're like, it's no use, we lost the connection to future, so basically the toxin is useless to us. I mean, you guys still have a future, right? Your future to fight for, right? That toxin is gonna come in handy for that. Again, so many logical absent. I mean, like I said, this entire movie is basically a suspension of disbelief all throughout the scene. Anyways, then it turns out they still didn't know where the aliens came from, where the spaceship actually landed, so they still don't know where to attack first. So the MC is back home, and then his wife basically suggests, what if the aliens didn't land in our time period, in our century? What if they had been here all along? I mean, so the future had all this time fighting the aliens, but they never came across that idea. Or the past, I mean, they probably have a special unit at this point thinking of solutions and the origin of the aliens that invaded the future, and still none of them came to this simple conclusion. So anyways, after that they go with the idea to the government to convince them to go to Russia, because the black guy from the movie actually researched claw from the other suicidal black guy, and found out that somehow it's actually in the Russian ice cap somewhere with the help of another black guy. Is that a pattern? I say it's a black kid, but like it's like a pattern, right? Anyways, they found out that was in a mountain something. I mean, I still don't get the science behind how the black guy found out this was from South Russian soil, but okay, I'm just gonna gloss over that because I don't know the science behind it, so I'm not gonna criticize someone else for knowing the science behind it if I don't know if it's correct or not, Anyways, they go to government to portray this knowledge, and obviously they don't give a shit. I mean, to be honest, if I was the government, I wouldn't give a shit either, because I most probably would have already been on that, considering it's a simple thing. What if they were simple thought process such as what if they were already years? I understand it's denial and dismissal of the guy, but the thing is, it would have only been a good dismissal if they're already thought of that, which they didn't. So again, what the hell. Anyways, next they gather a group of professionals and future people and go to Russian ice caps and find the location of the alien ship within a day or even less than an hour. Then they use explosive to make a crater around the ship so that they could get better access to the ship. I mean, that probably already accelerated the timeline in which the aliens would invade. So anyways, they get to the ship. Anyways, after they find it, what would a normal human being do at that point in time? Would they take a few pics so that they could give it to the government so that they could come in and destroy the ship, or do the required measurements, or B, give the pics to the media so that they would make a fuss and people would get uproar so that the government would act to calm the civilians, or C, you could try and blow up the ship on your own with your limited resources while taking the only people who know about the ship into the ship to either die or save humanity. I mean, if they die, actually humanity is fucked up, because one, they're the only people who actually know anything about where the alien ship is located right now, because obviously people are too dumb. And also, if they're disturbing the ship, they're gonna increase the timeline in which the aliens are gonna invade Earth. So what do you think the MC and this gang choose? Obviously, A and B are too logical, so they chose C. So in essence, Star-Lord is a narcissist who risks the entire future of humanity on his success. Anyways, they try to kill them. They wake up, obviously, like the... Oh, and also the reason why I said the only part of the movie that kind of made any logical sense was the last part, was because of this. There were actually aliens in this spacecraft, more advanced type of aliens who had a lot more intelligence and developed actually space travel, and the aliens for the infestation were actually cargo, so that actually kind of made sense. Anyhow, only good part of the movie. Anyways, blah blah blah, this happens, that happens. And also the funny part was when one of the crew from the MC actually finds an actual colony of aliens, and she was actually surprised to see that there were more of them. I mean, obviously, what did you expect? 5 of them to create an entire army that infested the future generation, and then the father and son basically fight the female and kill her somehow and save humanity. And one more thing I forgot to add was the fact that everyone was going haywire on the news that the future connection was lost. Even though right now, even though the reason the future lost the war between the aliens was because they didn't have any information on the aliens or the alien infestation. But right now the people from the past do have the information on when and how the aliens would invade. They have a lot more information than the past, so they have a lot more time to prepare. And on top of that, right now they again have a toxin which they can make into a fog, most likely. And they're still afraid. I mean, you come on, still afraid. You guys are 30 years to prepare. 30 fucking years to prepare. I think you're pretty safe. The another thing is on the scene in the future where the males try to take back the females from the ocean headquarters, and the future guys actually had some barricades which were basically made of sticks and paper. I mean, it might as well be because it was useless. They're from the future, yet they didn't have any kind of weaponry along the border, and I'm guessing the main reason they have the border would be to isolate, to prevent the aliens from getting on board. I mean, at least even if it wasn't, they should definitely make it into something that would prevent the aliens. So they should definitely have torrents along the border, which should be automated. Not humans should operate. Considering it's 30 years in the future, I do think they do have the technology to make automatic torrents to target just the aliens. Considering we already have AIs to some extent, even if our weapon technology doesn't improve from what we have right now, part of technology that would improve would be the AI and targeting software. So in the future they should have a better targeting. Again, I don't even think in the future they should have lost to the aliens, considering they're not invulnerable. They could be killed by semi-automatic, and so they would definitely be killed by machine guns. And again, they're in the future, so even if we just use the rudimentary machine guns we have right now for their future use, and use the future AIs and targeting software, they could easily kill all the infestation, cause they would need basically 2 bullets something to kill a single alien if they actually target it to exactly where they want. Considering they're using targeting software and AI, and it would be pretty accurate. Considering even Chris Pratt could kill an alien with a semi-automatic, I think machine guns will totally obliterate them. So I don't get how the future actually lost this battle, but okay. Anyways, that's my rant on this movie. This movie had a lot of logical absence. Big roller coaster of absence of logic. In every turn, twist, there was a logic that was missing. Anyways, the movie, to be honest, I most of the time don't really care if there that much logic, as long as it's a fun movie. But to be honest, the Tomorrow War is not that fun because it's so illogical most of the time. I watched Green Lantern and I still like the movie because it was kind of fun movie, to be honest, and I still didn't like this movie. So you gotta say, I have a lot of tolerance for dumb movies, but this was on a different level. So if you guys wanna waste 2 hours, don't waste on the Tomorrow War. And that's gonna be it.